Hello and welcome. My name is Brett Wilhoit, and this is going to be a short presentation about how to differentiate between project-based and problem-based learning. This is for Module 2 for American College of Education. So I'd like to first start with, on the screen there, you can see that first getting into a definition on project-based learning. And I kind of pulled largely from a lot of the readings for this week. But a couple of things that stand out to me in the definition is the fact that it largely is going to be focusing on the inquiry process as far as the definition goes, about how to kind of structure a process around the inquiry side of things, building on authentic questions as well as carefully designed tasks and products. And that's what largely stand out to me when I think about project-based learning. As a little introduction as well, too, before I jump into this, I meant to also add the fact that I have largely integrated in the past 4 or 5 years a good amount of project-based learning into my curriculum in my as a business teacher at the high school level. And so I just wanted to make sure part of this project is great in the fact that it will hopefully help me firm up my definitions of what project-based learning is, even though I have been using that term to kind of describe what I've been doing. And a little bit about making sure that if some of what I want to also incorporate is some problem-based learning too. So on to the next element too, some of the advantages of project-based learning that I see, the fact that it really aims to equip students with the 4 C's, which are, again, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity skills. That's a big reason why I felt the need to implement it, and I feel that's a strong aspect of project-based learning. There are some areas of concern, though, in the fact that some educators may lose focus and the product becomes the emphasis rather than the process. That was a great quote that Strevey had. And it's the fact that sometimes the end product is the focus of some teachers as far as just get this product in, turn it in, versus what's the process of inquiry and the working on collaboration and creativity skills. And it's something that I, even as a coach, I try to emphasize to my athletes too, to work on the process and not get too worried about the results sometimes too. Switching gears a little bit to the other aspect that we're going to be talking about, which is going to be problem-based learning. And with PBL, that's how they kind of quoted it for, at least for Wegner in the readings for this week. Students kind of learn primarily through the completion of an authentic assignment, mainly focusing on solutions to real-world problems. So what's kind of nice about this is students are able to kind of solely generate their own questions and then figure out a solution to them. And we'll hopefully have the solutions or the problems be grounded in the real world. And hopefully the solutions be grounded in the real world as well too. What's nice and some of the advantages is the fact that as a teacher, the role is much more kind of, as they say, the guide on the side versus the sage on the stage. And so another nice advantage though too is the fact that PBL kind of gives students ownership over their own learning because they are guiding the inquiry process. They are guiding the eventual outcome as well too. It's not as directed by the teacher. Some of the areas of concern though is the fact that there is no strict definition of what problem-based learning is. And as a result, Wenger says that its implementation varies widely. And I feel like that's sometimes the case for me as well too. So there are some similarities and differences in the two types of project-based and problem-based learning. We'll take a look at next some of the similarities of project and problem-based learning. Both of them emphasize future skills that are needed for jobs, and that's a big focus for me as a high school business teacher, emphasizing those 4 C's, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. It's a huge aspect that students need much more work on. I work with a lot of employers as part of my job, and they continually stress students need these skills as well coming out of high school and or college too. Also, both approaches allow students to take ownership of their learning. Again, that was kind of largely mentioned in problem-based learning, but that can also be true for project-based learning as well too, where the students drive the learning, not the teacher. There's a decent amount of work ahead of time for the teacher that needs to be done as far as make sure to have everything kind of planned out. But once the project or problem gets rolling, then it's largely student-led, student-directed as well. What's also nice is that Strevey mentions that the teachers can address multiple areas of the curriculum as well. So for example, in my Intro to Business class, I do a project where the students to create a whole business plan. And we'll take a look at that next. And the fact that I'm able to cover many areas of the curriculum by doing this one project. And basically something that we have for an entire quarter, almost 9 weeks of material. And I cover a number of different topics within that one major project as well too. Despite all the similarities, there are some differences as well in project and problem-based learning. when it comes to projects, oftentimes teachers, and myself included, can kind of use the same project year after year after year, semester, class after class. But problem-based learning, since it's derived solely from the students' questions and inquiry, every time it's done, the students are going to go down a different path and a different route as well, too. Also, some other differences is the fact that investigation plays a much bigger role when it comes to problem-based learning. That's the main focus. It's kind of like investigating situations and aspects in the real world and figuring out what are some problems people face. Whereas project-based is a lot more linear-based, where it's kind of first do this, then do that, then do this. Problem-based is kind of more, as Harvey says, ill-defined or kind of fuzzy real-world situations. Some students thrive when it's kind of a fuzzy, ill-defined area, and some students kind of struggle in that area too. It's something to kind of be aware of too. Stravi also continues to mention that problem-based learning often starts with a stated problem to be solved, whereas project-based learning often begins with a question posed by a student or teacher. And this is where I got kind of a little hung up too, because I thought project-based learning was with a problem, even though problem-based learning goes with, a stated problem to be solved. All right, and finally into kind of how does the same type of an assignment or project or same topic be approached differently? So we're first going to take the same topic being approached through the project-based learning situation. So in this case, the situation is always going to be the same. Students are going to be asked to create a business plan for a fake business of their own. This is largely because this class is largely geared towards freshmen and sophomores only, and we introduce a new class to the senior level where students will create a real actual business. So at the freshman sophomore level, we're trying to get them started to kind of create a fake business. So the project-based learning is going to be much more focused on the end result, the business plan. And as a result, working on the collaboration aspect, students kind of work together one another, sometimes with a partner, sometimes even a group of 3. More than 4, it gets a little too much to work on though too. We want to focus on as well, kind of breaking up this project into smaller pieces. So one thing that I emphasize is I kind of give due dates throughout the entire kind of project as well. And so kind of within the first week, make sure one aspect's done. Second week, make sure this is done as well too. And students have a choice whether they can split up the work individually and have one student work on one element all by themselves, or they can collaboratively work as a group on one task at a time and then move as a group on to the next task too. I also incorporate kind of projects within the project too, in the fact that, for example, like when we get to the marketing aspect, the students will actually create little promotional pieces. So that'll be kind of a little mini project. Like they'll make an ad, a commercial for the business that will kind of be used as well for their entire business plan. Switching gears to how would the same aspect be approached onto the problem-based learning. So the same thing, students are asked to create a business plan for a fake business of their own ideation. In this case, students can spend much more time kind of asking questions and really trying to hone in on what needs do customers have that are currently not being met. All too often, people jump right into an idea and take it and run and create a business plan. This approach, problem-based learning, is going to allow us to kind of really tackle problems that people have in their everyday lives and what solutions will then be able to be found out and discovered to meet those needs. So as a result, investigation is going to be a much bigger emphasis as well, too. As a result, too, trying into what Starby kind of mentioned about the fuzziness of some of the planning and the process as well, students don't necessarily always need to create, like, for example, like a for-profit business. They might also go down the lines of a non-profit business or any other aspect of an improvement to an existing product or anything else, too. So that would all kind of fit under the umbrella of kind of being problem-based learning as well, too. So lastly, those are the sources I kind of mentioned as well throughout my talk. Thank you very much for your time and attention.